Welcome back to Old Guy REI. We're back again. Mikey's with me today to discuss the highlights of our last Wednesday accountability call. And again, we had a lot of great topics. I think we were able to help a few people, which is always great. But there were crazy things from water heaters to snakes on this one. Some of the first things that we talked about, Mikey, were I kind of a general feeling across at least across the people that were with us that day, about the whole market. There were some people concerned about their units taking longer to rent and asked for suggestions on what might help them rent quicker. I know for us, it's been a concern because we have a couple of vacant units. We just got a couple filled, and it took almost 2 months for those to get filled. But I think you've talked with us before about how important reserves are. And I think the fact that we were able to have reserves in place helped us not to rush to place a tenant. Have you had any experience with that?
Understanding the rent numbers, I learned the hard way where the first one took some time, I would say maybe 3 months to fill. So that was pretty tough. Your first one, and you're trying to, you can't, you're like looking forward to the when the tenant comes in, but then as like the months kind of progress, you kind of worry that, oh, will it ever get filled? So yeah, I've had those fears.
Yeah, and you had loans on that property, right? So you're paying the mortgage each month, and I'm sure that doesn't feel great. We had the same experience. Some of the suggestions that a few of the people in the group threw out there were, for one, some people will offer like a half month off, move-in discount. I know our property manager suggested that to us. Some people suggested taking a serious look at your unit to see if there was anything that you needed to improve to help it be more rentable. Um, so all those things are helpful. I think it's just important to be patient and make sure you try to get the best tenant in place that you can.
I remember I had emailed Dion maybe when it was into that second month of vacancy, and I just kind of asked his opinion, what he thought of the ad, what he thought of the listing, and he he offered me some great advice. I changed the arrangement of pictures, and it was incredibly helpful. And then also on top of that, just going through Matt's course, Lumberjack Landlord, he has his own ad listing section, help filling your vacancies, so that also helps too.
Yeah, I know all the suggestions that Matt has for writing ads were super helpful. I think when I looked ours up, the ones that were filled last, we were able to look them up on Zillow because that's one of the places that they were up for rent. And I thought all the pictures looked really nice. The wording was as good as I would expect. The market is just, it's a little bit different. People are, that was the next thing that came up was how people are feeling about this market coming into the new year and with the election and stuff like that. Not, we never get too political. I don't know that much about politics, but Zuber has been telling us about this rolling recession, and it's going to have ups and downs, but it's going to last a while. And then he was on with Anna Kelly a few days ago, and she had an opposite opinion. She thinks it's going to get really dark. Have you thought about that? And are you doing anything to prepare for one scenario or the other?
I'm so new. I'm just trying to figure things out as I go along. I'm really grateful that Zuber on the ORAD on the school community, he posted Anna Kelly's kind of 2024 state of the economy. I think it's close to a couple hours. She covers what she's seeing in the market, the economic times, how from her previous experience she's kind of navigated through that. So that's really helped me kind of get a better understanding. But I'm more in a wait and see, and I'm just trying to watch and learn as best as I can because I'm so new. I've never experienced a recession as a real estate investor, so I don't know what's coming up, but I'm always have my ears open and just trying to listen.
Yeah, I think that's probably all any of us could do is just try to be ready for it, whichever way it goes. I like to be optimistic, and I think Zuber's information helps me stay optimistic. But I do think we should be ready in case it does turn downward for any period of time. And they're all talking about stacking as much cash as you can, not forever, but until things even out and we see the other side of the tunnel. And I think we're looking forward just to getting the rest of our units filled and get them stabilized, and then we'll be in a better spot for whatever comes.
It does seem like a lot of the bigger guys are just stacking cash, having that dry powder, and they're just ready. They're just waiting for the right time, opportunity to present itself, and they're just gonna jump.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I've been seeing too. Uh, Among the other things that came up in the meeting, I think it was Santiago that was asking about using tankless water heaters versus a regular tank heater. And he was asking because there's an area in one of his rentals that doesn't quite have enough room for a washing machine and a dryer because the water heater's there also. But if he goes tankless, that saves a lot of space and you can kind of put them anywhere. Um, so we gave him a few brands that we've used in the past that are really good, and that gave him some options. I think one of the nice things that I think is if you go tankless, the water heater's not constantly having to heat the water that's in the tank. They're on demand. So as soon as you open the hot water valve in the house, the burners kick on and you have instant hot water, and it'll last as long as the valve's open. You never run out. They have different sizes for, say, a one bathroom home versus a 2 or 3 bathroom home. And the cost obviously increases with each model, but I think it's a good way to go, especially if you're going to use a natural gas. They do make electric versions, but I don't think those are as economical as a natural gas would be.
Do you happen to remember those brands you had mentioned? Because I know Ream was Ream one of them.
Yeah, Rheem was a brand that Home Depot carried, and it's a decent brand. We also used to use a brand, Japanese brand called Takagi,
Hmm.
Takagi, and that was one of the leading brands. And one of the oldest brands is a brand called Rinnai, and it's Rinnai, I believe. But all of those are decent quality. I'm sure there are some newer ones. It's been a long time since we've installed one, but they're really amazing. Some of the other members in the group were talking about different things that they do depending on the climate. One of the things that Josh had brought up about Washington State was the fact that each year they blow out the sprinkler systems in their landscaping sprinklers so that the water doesn't freeze in there and damage sprinkler heads and things like that. That was something I had never really thought of. But we also, on the same topic, talked about home insulation because one of the members had issues with walls sweating in one of his units. And he actually had somebody go up into the attic and take a look around, and they found that there was hardly any insulation in the attic. And he's thinking that could be part of the problem because you have such a difference in the air temperature in the attic and in the home. If you're trying to heat the home at 70, 75 degrees, but the attic air is so cold, that difference could cause condensation. So he was going to get new insulation installed, and there are different ratings for insulation. For example, if the home is built with a 2x4 construction, typically you can get what they call a R13 or R15 insulation to fit in those walls. If the home's built with 2x6 framing, you can go up to R19, and the R value changes with the thickness of the insulation. And typically in an attic, they'll usually blow in around an R30. rating. Blown-in insulation is pretty good. If you sometimes they'll even go up to R38 depending on the region. I think you did a little bit of research and saw that the R values change depending where you live.
I like that you recommended This Old House. So I've been kind of watching some of their previous videos that they've done, and I like that insulation video where they showed the country and the different sections of that country, you know, having a R rating maybe for the South, then have a different one for the up north, and having a different one more on the coast. So those type of things. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's almost like a planting schedule. You know, if you look and see what grows in what regions, it's kind of the same kind of idea, just depending on the temperatures and stuff. And so hopefully he'll be able to get that worked out. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking with Michelle, and she was talking about um, attic vents and things like that, because the air in the attic is supposed to stay moving. The air will come in through your eave vents and go out through the roof vents. But last week we also talked about insulation baffles, because you can't block your vents in the eaves with insulation when they blow it in, or the airflow is just restricted. So they have these baffles that either nail or staple onto the framing on the roof, and it keeps the air moving from the vent up into the attic, but they can still blow insulation around that baffle. So that was, and then in Michelle's case, she was having solar vents, solar fans installed in her attic. And you can set those to certain temperatures. A lot of people in California will set them to 90 degrees. So when the attic temperature hits 90, the fans kick on, and that keeps the air in the attic cooler, which not only helps the temperature in the house, but it helps preserve or extend the life of the roof, because it's not always baking from the bottom side either. So I've heard roofers talk about that before too. So there was a lot of good information, but one of the scary ones was someone's tenant found a snake in the house, and they were panicking about the snake.
Oh, so sorry, before we jump into that, another thing about insulation from what you're telling me is it also helps with lower utility bills for the tenant. So that's another important thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Like in our house was built in 46, so there was no insulation in the walls, and that makes a huge difference, especially for us, because all of our house is electric. So in the wintertime, we're using electric heaters and stuff, and the bills get pretty high. We haven't gotten the walls insulated yet. It's a little bit different process. You can still have it done, but they drill holes on all the exterior walls, and they'll blow in insulation into the cavities in between the 2x4s. Then you have to patch either the inside or the outside, depending which side you drill the holes on. And that's a little bit of a chore. And then obviously you got to patch and repaint, but the insulation definitely will help. And especially if a landlord is paying for utilities, I think you want to get the place insulated.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry for all the snake enthusiasts out there. We can move on to that topic.
Yeah, so the tenant had a snake apparently, and they were panicking. And the investor that was with us was asking for any advice on how to keep the snakes out. And a few people had recommended a couple of companies and a couple of products that you can kind of sprinkle around the house to deter snakes. Some people suggested a cat, but we were saying if there's any holes outside the house that a mouse could get into, you definitely want to block stuff like that, because if a mouse can get in, I'm sure a snake could get in too. But we were even wondering, maybe the tenant brought the snake back with them from somewhere. If they were camping or something. I've heard of that before, where a snake gets in a sleeping bag or a jacket or something. So I don't know how much, other than plugging up all the holes outside, how much more a landlord could do, or how much is a landlord responsible for something like that.
Yeah, and you made the good point about Google Lens, just trying to identify what type of snake it is, if
Oh,
it's venomous or not. And I know Val had talked about, mothballs as a form of trying to help that, and snake be gone as another type of thing. So I'm not sure. I've never had dealt with that before. So
Yeah, the mothballs seem to work for a lot of things. A lot of people have told us out here in the country they help with mice. Mice don't like the smell. And for mice also, there's a lot of sprays that contain like peppermint. Apparently that they don't like that either. So occasionally here I'll go around and spray the mint spray all around. If you have a car sitting for too long, they'll like to get in the engine compartment and chew wires and stuff like that. So they have little packets too. People sell little packets you can throw in the car or even under the hood in certain spots where the smell will keep them from getting up in there. I think that that covers most of everything that people brought up. Although Santiago did mention that he got an umbrella policy. Do you have one yet for your properties?
That's what I would want to work on. Maybe if I get the next one, want to start shopping for that, trying to see and understand.
Yeah, there's a little bit to it. I know Dion had explained it to us before, but when I looked at it, it's been about 4 or 5 months. I was looking into it, and what they came back with was when they checked our existing auto insurance, because Dion had said sometimes they make you put your autos in the same policy. And in my case, my work vans didn't have enough coverage. They wanted me to increase the coverage on my work vans before they would give us a policy. And when I went back and asked them, how could I do it without increase? Because my company wouldn't increase the value or the policy on my vans. And they said they could still make a policy, but the policy would be quite a bit more expensive. And I think it made a difference of about $900 a year in my case. So it was about 1,100 if I increased my van policies, and it was almost 2,000 if I did it without increasing the van policies. And talking about insurance, a few of the people in the group are in the Florida market, and they were just talking about how hard it is these days to find a company that will insure them, and the costs are going up a lot. That's one reason I have never really been too interested in that market, was just because of all the headaches with insurance. Being in California, we have headaches as well, but not nearly as bad as they do there.
I give them props because even with all that, they're making it work and they're successful at it. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad.
it seems like there are quite a few people figuring it out. Um, and also on the insurance topic, one of our friends was looking at a duplex and was shopping insurance, and the insurance company wanted the information from his inspection report about the roof. And he didn't really think about it too much. He sent them the whole inspection report. And because of some of the other small items on the inspection report, they told him they would not insure that property. So that might just be a little piece of advice for other people. Just send the insurance company what they ask for. Don't offer any more, or any less.
And luckily, it worked out in his favor because he was able to find a different provider that even offered a better price.
Yeah, I think it was his insurance company that had his primary. So it did work out better for him. But that's a lesson for sure.
And from what I understand about umbrella insurance is if you don't have an LLC and you want maybe more protection, that's when real estate investors, at least from what the guys talk about, that's when you kind of want to look into umbrella insurance when your portfolio starts to grow a little bit more.
Yeah, they go through over that topic quite often. It's kind of a nuisance topic for some of them, but the I think the fact is true that an LLC doesn't really help unless you have partners. And the umbrella policy is good, a good part to protect your investment, but also when you have loans on the properties, that helps protect it too, because if somebody comes after the property, they're going to be fighting the mortgage company first. But if you own a property outright, it's more tempting for someone to come after that property because you don't have a loan on it. So it's made me think recently too if we should put some kind of mortgages on the two properties that we have paid in cash. And of course, we'd use the money to go buy a couple more, but you know, that was a great point, and we didn't know that at first. There's always, I don't know, every week there's always something new to learn about. So, you know, I can understand why people say you never stop learning, even if, you know, you have a multiple units like Matt and Zuber, there's always things you can learn. And recently we were talking about, you know, some things like seller financing and subject to, and things that don't really seem to fit what we're doing right now. But it seems like it's might still be good to learn about it just in case the opportunity ever did arise. How do you feel about that? Because I was kind of turned off by seller financing because it seems very difficult and all the planets have to line up just right. But again, I think Ty has a segment in the school community that I have yet to listen to, but it's all about creative financing and just another tool to use later on down the line.
Yeah, it's not easy. I tried offering recently for seller financing. I got rejected, but at least it's worth a shot just to see. And they talk about being it that's the golden goose seller financing. So I'll just keep on trying different ways, different methods, see if anyone agrees down the line.
Yeah, you never know. And I think I don't remember who it is. Is it Dion that when he puts offers out, he'll put a conventional offer and a seller financing option? I think that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just for when you mentioned Dion talk, he started his course calls this month. And I just wanted to say it's really good just having because it is a smaller group, so you're able to have this kind of one-on-one time, and each investor is able to kind of talk through what they're going through. We're all able to dig in and try to see, what type of options we have. And it's like once you sign up for his course, you're pretty much able to attend these course calls. It's not a one-time course call thing, but it's every other month that it continues on. So it's like once you're a course member, then that continues on and you're available to be on these course calls after his live stream. So I just thought more value if you guys are interested.
Yeah. And not just the course calls, but his member only calls as well. He does those a couple times a month. And like you said, there's not usually too many people in there. And I think that's like we've said before, there's a lot of value there because each person can ask a question and get some feedback, not just from Dion, but other people in the group too. In in the accountability calls, our Wednesday call and Jared's Sunday call, I just see people me too, learning something new every week. So I'm glad I talked to Jared yesterday, in fact, and was just thanking him for taking that on because it does take some time and commitment, and he has a family, a younger son. I think he said he was 10, but weekends are important for family time, but he still manages to do both. So that was really nice.
Yeah, when Pace Morby was with the Three Amigos, they did that interview. Even Pace was taking notes. So it kind of shows even you're bigger or whatever size of investor you are, you're always able to learn something.
Yeah, I don't remember who I was talking to, but you just gave me that thought where a couple of guys, Cody for one, is it Christensen? That that he scaled early. He's only 20 something, and he blew up really big. But now he's taking a step back and looking at what he really needs from his investment properties, and it seems like he's now realizing that time freedom is more valuable than all of that cash flow. Maybe he doesn't need all that cash flow. He's considering downsizing a little bit. And that's been a theme over the last couple of weeks where all these big guys, Pace and um, not Zuber necessarily, but a couple of the bigger investors out there are talking about just having 4 or 5 properties, and that can give you a really good life later on. And that helps us too, thinking, that we can do well with a few properties, that you don't need 100 to be successful.
Just get to 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think we made it through the whole Zoom call, and we'll look forward to doing it again next week. And I appreciate you coming back every week to do this with me. You have a lot of great thoughts and a lot of good input, and I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you letting me ask all these questions. I know I have a lot, so thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, so until next week, we'll see you then.
See ya.